Um,
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc. I am a bereavement support specialist. Hello, Susan. It's good to see you.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you very much for that opening today. My name is Susan Capurso, Legacy Specialist, and I'm very excited. We both are today for today's guest. You know, in life, we all go through unexpected changes and new seasons all the time. And as we all know, life doesn't always unfold exactly the way that we either think it should, that we would like it to, or that we hope it would, right? So it can be confusing for all of us. We're human beings and we have to help each other along the path. So today we're speaking with a magnificent person that Lisa's met recently. Our guest, who's been through some twists and turns and some unexpected things of her own. And hopefully, she will help us all navigate some of these changes in an easier, more flowing type of way.
Sure.
So, Lisa, can you introduce our guest today?
Sure. Her
I'm
name is
excited.
Terray Gregoretti. Trying. It might be worse than the Strahs-Lorenc. Um, she has extensive experience as a social worker. She has a lot of great skills, leadership skills, program management, problem solving. She also does a lot of mediation and she de-escalates many situations. She's been very effective in representing an organization's mission and values. She is a proud aunt of four and she happily lives in Long Beach. Terray, thanks so much for being here and suggesting this topic.
Well, thank you both for having me and for being open to talk about this topic. I
Sure. This
really
is
appreciate the opportunity.
a different kind of grief. Describe
Hmm.
this grief and what
Hmm.
this conversation is about. Go ahead, Terray.
Okay.
Different, but I think more common than everybody realizes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So this is a type of grief that I had to kind of come to the realization on my own that it even is grief. The grief that I've experienced that I'm going to talk about is the loss of the life that I thought I was going to have. Once somebody said to me, well, how do you grieve something that you never had? But I realized that you can grieve something that you never had. And I've had to learn that it is grief that I was feeling. It was grief that I was experiencing. And it's not something, there's not a name for what I experienced, or maybe what others who can relate have experienced. We don't have, I don't think there's recognition out there for this type of grief. And I had always thought, no doubt in my mind, that I was going to be a mother. And I was going to get married, and I'm turning 50 this summer, and neither has happened for me. And that's another podcast. But with that said, I had a lot of ideas of what my life would look like and experiences that I couldn't wait to have. Um, Opportunities I couldn't wait to have, and an identity that I couldn't wait to have. And I have come to learn that I had to grieve the loss of the life that I thought I was going to have and all those experiences that I thought I was going to have, and being a mom, and that identity of being a mom, the identity of being a wife, the identity of having a family, and the experiences that come along with it, the family vacations, the first days of school, the first communions. Um, it's what I've come to learn too is figuring out that it was grief that I was experiencing, and that it's okay. Like I felt guilty, and I felt like, well, it felt like it was a negative thing to me. If I call this grief, if I feel like it's grief, then does that mean like I'm not appreciative of the life I have? Does that mean I'm being negative? Does that mean, I'm not looking at things positively? And I learned that I had to give myself permission to be okay and not feel guilty for having these feelings. And if I deny them, they're going to come out in some way, one way or another. So I had to learn how to be okay with having those feelings, and also understanding two things can exist, as they say. I can be happy with my life as it is, and I could still grieve the life that I thought I was going to have.
Ray, I want to just say thank you very much for speaking with us today because there are many types of of grief, as you know. And this is a kind of grief as well. And so many people can relate to this. And this is why it was so important for us for Lisa and I to speak about. But just because you're being vulnerable today, I want to thank you for that. Sometimes it's hard to talk about ourselves. I know it
Mhm.
is for me, but I've had to with many of the topics we discuss. So, can you tell us about a moment when you first realized, maybe for the first time, that, oh no, your life was not going to unfold in the way that you imagined? You just mentioned a few ways you imagined it, but
Uh-huh.
when did that happen for you? Was it this week, this year? Was it 10 years ago?
And that's what's interesting about this type of grief is that, um, with somebody passing, it's a very clear start. Uh, or maybe if somebody's sick leading up to, what's going to happen. For this type of grief, there is no, you um, kind of have to decide when it's starting. Like I had to kind of, so I don't know that there was one moment or defining time in my life. I think it was really a process. I think it was a progression. I think it was as I got older, the reality of facing, um, I think it came with making some decisions because there are options to do it on your own. So grappling with that. And yeah, I can't say there's one moment. I think it's an accumulation of moments, and it's an accumulation of conversations I've had with friends, other people who are experiencing. I'm fortunate in that I have a handful of friends who are in similar situations as me, not having married or have kids. Some of them were much more okay with not having kids than I was. That was always, I just knew it was always deep ingrained in me that I wanted kids. So yeah, I can't say there's one particular moment. I think it
Now,
was a
with the
progression.
loss of a loved one, right, and that type of grief, clearly many people will say to you, there's no time to stop grieving. I can grieve for the rest of my life. There's no timeline. And they know this, and it's a true thing, it's a true fact. You don't stop. But was there any one point in the pieces of your life that you've been grieving, and we're talking about things that you didn't expect to happen or that happened that you didn't expect, whatever, but was there a point where you stopped fighting against that and said, okay, now I will start accepting, I'll start accepting some of this grief in order for you to find more happiness and move forward? Or
Yeah.
no, is it an everlasting grief like with the loss of a loved one?
I think it's a combination. I think it's one of those, I want to say my mid 40s or so, I got to a place where I'm like, okay, I want to make peace with that. This isn't happening. And I don't want to keep living my life waiting for something to happen. I want to live my life and enjoy my life as it is. Um,
Right.
but then as I started nearing 50, this past few months, I had a really hard time with like, should I have done things differently? Should I have explored other options? A lot of like kind of regret and questioning myself, did I make the right decisions? So I think it comes up, different things in your life bring up different feelings around it.
Right.
Turning 50, I didn't expect it to trigger those feelings, but it did. Seeing my friends' children, now they're going to the proms, now they're graduating college, now eventually they're going to be getting married, my friends are becoming grandparents. And I think it already has, that stirs it up for me too.
Sure.
Even if I've made even if I felt like I made peace with it, it still comes up for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does. And that's okay.
Hmm.
I think that's just I think with this, with a lot of different topics, when it comes to grieving different things, we are just human. And I think that it's okay to go through these feelings, to feel them. We all have different stories,
Hmm.
right? We all have different situations. Lisa lost her husband, and things turned out a little bit differently for her. I lost my husband, and my story's much different.
Hmm.
Not particularly happy with the way mine turned out, but that's why I was excited to speak with you today and
Mhm.
with some of the changes.
I think
Go ahead, Lisa. I know you want to speak.
what's really interesting to me is what we thought our lives would be like. You know,
Yeah.
like, being with somebody the rest of their lives, growing old together. Your example is children and having a family. Our example is we thought that our husbands would be with us forever,
Hmm.
and we'd get old together. So I think that issue of what we thought our lives would be like for
Hmm. Hmm.
everybody, whatever
Hmm.
that is.
Hmm.
That's the thing for me to look at, you know?
And
And
what's funny, Lisa, is that we could all look at each other's situations and feel that, but Terray can look at us and say, but at least you got to have the marriage
sure,
and the children.
sure.
I can look at Terray and say, but you didn't go through a lot of the things I went through for 25 years.
Yeah,
So we could all admire and look at
sure,
each other's situation.
sure.
Um, and
But
who knows what's right or wrong? It's the
but
Yeah.
feelings.
but for ourselves, as we grieve what we thought was going to be our lives, that's the issue. Okay, that's the issue. You have that thought process, and you grow up with that. I always want to be married. I always want to have children. I always, on and on and on. And
Hmm.
then when that doesn't happen, it's it's a aha, now what? Now where am I in my life? And how do I see that? And the grieving part, which, we still have, obviously, because we've lost our spouses, is it's not what we thought it would be. And we're sad about that.
Hmm.
But we've tried to figure out what our lives will look like now,
Hmm.
you know? And I think the birthday thing, by the way, I'm into birthdays. And birthdays bring up a lot of things,
Hmm.
especially those numbers.
Right.
40, 50, 60. I got a
Right.
bunch of people turning 75 soon, and I think it does bring up sort of an awakening of, so where is my life now
Yes. Yeah.
after these
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah, and I think part of me, even though I made peace with it, I think there was still part of me that thought it still might happen for me. And
Mm.
then hitting 50 is more of a realization that it's not going to happen in the way that I thought. Could it happen in another way that, a door will open for me? I hope so. In some way, but not in the I saw myself with three kids. I saw myself, being a mom and um, the social media, it always gets me. The night before Christmas, parents always put pictures up of the Christmas tree with all the gifts underneath it, and that always gets me because that was one of the things I couldn't wait about being a mom is those types of moments.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
Wow.
yeah.
That's extreme because people who haven't been in your shoes and haven't gone through that don't understand that. And I
mhm,
just got the chills when you said it because I would have never thought about that in my life without having heard it from you. But that has to stir up a lot of
mhm,
sensitivity. And
yeah.
have you discovered anything uh having gone through your journey? Anything really positive about yourself?
I became a big sister through Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I think because I feel like I have a lot of love to give, um, a lot of nurturing to give. I'm very close with my nieces and my nephew. I'm very involved in their lives. I'm fortunate in that my sisters include me in a lot. So I guess I've found ways to fill those voids, if you want to say. I mean, I don't know if the void is ever filled, but to find ways to channel my love and my nurturing and wanting to feel connected to kids. And I think I've just, I moved by myself. I bought two homes by myself. I moved to Long Beach, which has been such a great experience and built a life here that I really enjoy.
I was thinking about the adoption agency, which I did mention to Terray. And many of those people, thought that they would have biological children. Some
Mhm.
chose, I mean, that was a choice, and some chose adoption. But others stated during, home placements and stuff that they really thought that they would have a biological child. And this was, quote, an alternative, but in their heads, they were still thinking. Now, once the child came,
Mhm.
they were their child,
Mhm. Mhm.
no matter what the age of the child, no matter where they came from, because this was an international adoption. I was thinking about how that process happened for them and how they had to change the way they thought their children would look, their children would be,
Mhm.
how they met
Mhm.
their children.
Mhm.
The children came
Mhm.
from orphanages, their children came from other countries. And that was a whole nother thing for them. And they were younger, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
20s, 30s, desperate at that time to figure
Mhm.
out how they were going to get a child. And then there are older parents that we had who had
Mhm.
got older children, which is a whole nother deal, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
But again, not seeing it the way they thought they would, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I want to add is part of this journey, one thing I've learned is that nothing guarantees happiness. Being married doesn't guarantee happiness, having children doesn't guarantee happiness. And I've learned to focus on being happy with what I do have,
Mm.
and making the best out of the life that I do have. I think is something that I've come to learn throughout this process, this experience. And also I think I spent a lot of time living for a life I thought I was going to have.
Mm.
And I learned I had to put more energy in living the life that I do have. Um,
That's great advice. Great advice.
That's really great. That's
Yeah.
really great
Yeah.
because, you know, what you thought would be a great life before, right? People say God has other plans
Yes.
or,
Yes.
takes you in a different direction. Um, so maybe now your picture of the second half of your life now, having a great life is just a little bit different than
Mhm.
what you had imagined before. And to try and embrace these changes, I think, just it's difficult. We all have different reasons and different seasons, like I said at the beginning, but no matter what they are, it's challenging to go through things that we didn't expect, or didn't
Right.
want to unfold that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's 10 years. I haven't dated. Lisa's had another relationship. So I can't believe I'm at this age in my life and I'm not with somebody traveling
Mhm.
around the world and
Mhm.
going on adventures and seeing new things and and it's a little lonely and I didn't expect it to be this way. So I have to
Yeah.
start shifting my perspective a little bit, I
Mhm.
guess, is what I'm saying.
And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very grateful that I had this life. However, um, many things come up that make me very sad that he's not here. I have my son's wedding coming up,
Mhm.
and it is very hard to think about that. I went through my daughter's wedding without him, and it's sad. However, again, like you said, we focus on what we have, and I'm
Mhm.
very grateful for where I am now in my life and the life that I've made. But that doesn't mean that you now forget what you thought would be.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
what we thought would
Mhm.
be. I mean, we built a life for ourselves, a great life, and
Yeah.
raised two wonderful children and all. So, I know Susan can relate to that as well. Um,
This weekend,
Yep, this
my
weekend.
my son got married and it was real difficult.
Mhm.
Um, what would you say to somebody, Teray, who's going through your situation or struggling with the unexpected in their lives, whether it be your story a little bit different, what would you say to them that could be a positive that can help them shift their perspective?
Well, I think acknowledging your feelings are valid, they're real, and you're not alone in feeling this way. Not having the life you thought you were going to have is a loss and treat it as such. Um, and 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 like I said earlier, it doesn't mean you can't still enjoy your life, can't still have a good life, can't still make the best of what you do have or create a life. Living in Long Beach was such a big opportunity for me. I was living in Farmingdale, which was nice, but I felt like I was surrounded by families most of the time, and that was
Mhm.
not good for me. That was triggering for me. And moving to Long Beach, I don't feel like there are families around, but there's single people, there's people all sorts of times in their lives, and it's I don't have that feeling of isolation. So I think for people, it's allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel. Don't beat yourself up for feeling that way. Um, it's understandable, it's normal to feel that way. And then also don't live in that space. I have a friend who says to me, but you don't want to live there. So figuring out ways to build a life for yourself and pursue hobbies. And, there is nice that sometimes it's lonely because I have a lot of time to myself, but I could do whatever I want with my time. I could spend my money how I want. I could leave my house as clean or messy as I want. I could do what I want. So I enjoy the freedom that comes along with that. So there are things that I do enjoy and looking for what you can enjoy in your life.
Yeah, well said. But always acknowledging, like you said, and you're such a great social worker, really acknowledging that feelings are okay. And we
Hmm.
say that all the time in this YouTube thing. You can't just, say, well, don't feel that way, because that's unfair to all of us.
Hmm.
We,
Hmm.
we had ideas, we had plans, whatever, and they didn't happen or they went a different way. And that's okay. And it's okay for us to feel angry or sad or
Hmm. Hmm.
upset over it because we're human beings
Yeah.
and we're allowed to feel that way. I think when we start pushing our feelings away,
Hmm.
that they come out in all kinds of destructive ways,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Lisa, you just said something that made me think too is I've talked about this with some of my friends who are in similar situations where it's when other people get married, other people having children, that piece of you're happy for them and
Yes.
it still makes you sad and it still brings up things for you and that not feeling guilty for feeling that way and recognizing you could still be happy for somebody, but it could be tearing you up inside.
That's exactly, by the way, about my cousin. My cousin had tried in vitro
Hmm.
a number of times. And every time she saw somebody pregnant, it like inside her just tore her up.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
she went to groups, she went to all kinds of things trying to, and she
Hmm.
finally adopted a child,
Hmm.
um, private adoption. But it was very hard. And as you said, you're still entitled to the feelings that you have. You're
Hmm.
still a human being, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, so well said, Terry, really.
Well, thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Now, and I think part of it also is being flexible. I think things can change. There are things
Hmm.
that happen in your life that we just didn't know, and maybe they're surprising,
Hmm.
you know? There's a lot of surprises, I think, if we open ourselves up to it,
Right, right.
right?
And you mentioned the anger before, and I didn't touch upon that. I think maybe because I'm not in an angry place, but there was a time, quite a while, where I was very angry, and I think I've worked through that. But the anger can weigh you down and can really eat at you. And but there was a lot of anger there for a while.
Yeah, what other people have, where am I,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
deserve
And
it.
our stories are so different. Our lives are so different. Our personalities are so different. But I really feel that, and I think I can speak for Lisa that she feels the same way. We all have a choice with whatever we're handed with. So, like the loss of my husband, I could choose to lay in bed and pull the blanket over my head for the next 20 years of my life and continue to be angry all the time that
Hmm.
the things that he left me with. I didn't have a final CO on my house that I had to work on that took me a year and a half just now to get. a lot of things that he left me with. And I can continue to be angry about that or not, right? So we all have that choice to not be angry. And I know it's easier said than done. But we have to make the choices on what's right for us. Do we want to be happy in our lives? Do we want to be happy in the world? Do we want to meet different people and try new things? And all of those things are scary, right? A lot of us as humans don't like change, right? So how do we try these new things and get out there? There's still things that people suggest to me all the time. And I'm like, no, no way in hell. No, that's not me. I don't want to do that. Well, then I'm going to stay in the situation I am for a while until I decide to step out of my own comfort zone. And I think that's with anybody in any story, but this is definitely a grief that Lisa and I really haven't thought about. So that's really, really why we appreciate you being here today, because whether it's that one single type of grief or another, it's valid. They're all the same. They're all challenges and stories and situations that we have to flow and grow through or not, right? We could spend our lives just being miserable for the rest of our lives. And hopefully, with self-learning and listening to things like this, and I'm an avid reader, and I follow a lot of people, and it always makes me feel better. It makes me feel better when I'm learning positive aspects of my grief, and different positive things that I can do to make myself feel better. And we all need to do that regardless of the situation. And I mean, Lisa, you and I can sit and probably think of 10 other subjects that people are grieving, and we don't even realize that they're grieving. This was really new for us. When you brought this up to me a few weeks ago, it's something that I never thought of. Why? Because I haven't experienced it, but it doesn't mean it's not as bad or as valid as any other grief.
But we have experienced it, because when you look back now at what we thought we would, where we'd be, it isn't what we thought. Okay. I take my father. Okay. I was 30 when I got the phone call from Canada that my father he was 57, had a massive heart attack in the hotel room. And I changed my life within 6 months. We had been together for 8 years, my husband and I. We decided to have a child. I resigned from my job. I gave them 6 months notice to train whoever wanted to replace me. I started a new business. I mean, those were all because something happened that I hadn't anticipated. Now it was either, okay, I'm going to now, my whole world crashed in and that's the end, or I'm going to make everything different, And so each of us decides in some way how and in some time, how we're going to handle the things that get pushed on us and that we did not think would be, right? You have your parents forever. And, now, I mean, I had already lost my mom when I was 2. Okay. My biological mom. And I had a new mom. And I was aware of this from the time I was growing up, that, my adopted mom still was my mom and all, but that life could change on a dime. And so knowing that, I think prepared me for unexpected, that whatever I thought might be, may not be, that's like how I grew up. Yeah. I can't even believe that I'm this age now. I didn't think I would reach this age, So I think all of our lives, the way we thought, just keeps changing and evolving. And as you said, you look at the things that make you happy, but you still acknowledge what you thought would be and what might be sad. And that's okay. It's very okay. It's very okay to miss my husband. When my son said that he was engaged, well, that's okay. It doesn't mean I don't appreciate what I have now. And like you said the same thing, you're living the life you're living, but it wasn't what you thought you'd be living.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just
I
it's a
think it's,
amazing
part of
process.
it that I'm thinking of when you're talking about this is um, embracing the unexpected too, and the new adventures that can possibly come your way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've lived in my house for 33 years, and I'm moving, and it's tough having to go through my son's wedding and getting ready to move and packing, and it's been a lot on me. And one day I'm in my car and I'm listening to an audiobook, and I'm having a lot of fear. I don't know where I'm moving to, or because I can't move anywhere until I sell this house to get into the next house. And I have this fear going on. And whatever book I was reading, they started talking about this, and they started talking about, instead of looking at it like a fear or why is this happening, to look at it like, my gosh, how lucky am I to have this next adventure? Anything can happen. You can move into a beautiful townhouse and there's a really handsome, single, successful, wealthy man who lives next door to you who wants somebody in the world to travel with and visit different countries. And that possibility can be around that next turn for you if you open your arms and look forward to it, and your perception, and expect it, and right? You know what I mean, Lisa.
I do. And it's at any age and any stage. Because I gave Terray two examples. We were talking about this. I gave two examples, and I'll give it now because it's really interesting. At my reunion, these two people who actually in the yearbook were on the same page. One was a confirmed bachelor. We knew it. He was a confirmed bachelor. He was never going to get married. And that's in his head. That's where he was. And the woman who was divorced and had some grandchildren, grandchildren, and they, got together. We stayed over the hotel that night. And the next day they came together in the morning and we looked at each other and said, oh, and in 2 years they got married. And neither of them expected that that might happen to them at their age and stage of life. And give you one more example. Again, the way you see things. My older friend who was engaged, but it wasn't the right thing and broke it off. She has been single. She will be turning 79 in July. And she found somebody. She networked with somebody. It was a business arrangement. She thought that's all it was. And then it became more. And he lives with her now. And yet in her head, it was, I will never, ever be with somebody else, ever, anybody. So even when we think that things are now arranged and they're going to be this way,
Mm-hmm.
it can change. And as Susan said, being open to it. Every single podcast, I'm very positive. That's just who I am. It's always the glass full person. And I just see so many things that happen when you embrace, change and
Mm-hmm.
different opportunities. I see it, you know? Um, so again, it's all part and parcel of that dichotomy. Yes, I had this and I wanted this and now it's this, and what will it be now?
Mm-hmm.
And it is an
And what
adventure.
will it be next?
That's right. What will it be
Yeah.
next? That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, well, that helped a little. I apologize for the tech issues tonight.
Yeah.
You can't see me very well. My webcam broke right before we came on. So that was a little better with the light there. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least we
it's
yeah.
it's tough, and it's a tough subject. And again, we grieve in many ways. And we really do appreciate you talking about this, because it's a vulnerable subject, I think,
Mm-hmm.
Terray. You
I,
know,
I think this is part of my healing is talking about it,
I
reaching out
agree.
to Lisa and talking about it because I want to shed light on this and I want to create some awareness. And I hope people hear this, that it resonates with them and validates maybe some of their feelings. And that would mean a lot to me.
Right. And I also see you being of service and
She
of help, like you're doing right now, to other people who maybe have gone through your journey, to give them a little more confidence in it,
Hmm.
to let them know that they will too turn out okay, and
Yeah.
and everything's okay. That's why Lisa and I do what we do with this video, because of everything that we've been through. Um,
and her
but yeah,
profession has already demonstrated that. People become social workers, people become many different things for many reasons. And who she has helped and what she has done in her profession really does, we don't compensate, but we find ways to bring out who we are and how we can help. And you have, Terray. You have.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Well,
Very good.
yeah.
So, would you be willing to chat with anybody if anybody saw our video and maybe wanted to reach out and bounce some things off you and have a conversation? How could they reach out to you?
Sure. I could give my email address. Would
Sure.
that
That'd
work?
be great.
That would be great. Go ahead.
Should I say it out loud now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I had to think for a second. Terray, M as in Mary, F as in Frank, G as in George, at gmail.com.
Great. Say it one more
Wonderful.
time. One more time.
Sure. Terray, M as in Mary, F as in Frank, G as in George, at gmail.com.
Great. That'd be wonderful.
Sure.
Yeah, we believe
Yeah.
in support groups. I think that support, knowing that you're not alone, is so important for people.
It's huge. And that's one thing I mentioned earlier. I had a handful of friends, similar situations, and that's been such a huge help for me throughout the years.
Oh, sure. Find somebody to have that support,
Hmm
a go-to person, Lisa and I talk about all the time, but and the many ways that you can find support, either before you lose a loved one or after. There are many different ways, not just a support group. So that's great to know that, you've had that in your life too.
It's always knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah,
People are really surprised when they say, "Oh, that person feels just like me," or "That
hmm
person's just
yeah,
gone through the same thing as me." It's like
It's
such a shock
huge.
to people that
Uh-huh.
there are other people around that feel the way they feel. Yeah,
right.
so supportive. Really nice. Thanks.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks so
Well,
much.
thank you very much for sharing today. This was
Thank
great.
you.
And
Yeah,
we really appreciate it. Your story and again, your vulnerability. That's the big thing. Most of us think of grief, death,
Hmm
right? We lost somebody we love, but there's many ways to grieve. I think out of all our videos, um, Lisa, we might have done one other one. I can't think of it right now. Um, about grief, and it wasn't the loss of a loved one. It was about a type of situation that you're
we
in.
did.
I
We
think.
did divorce. We did divorce.
Oh,
That was,
that's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Yep. And that's a grief.
So these things are really important to talk about because we all go
It
through them.
is.
So
Yeah.
many people
Yeah.
do.
It is.
Yeah.
And it helps so much when you realize you're not alone and that other people feel this way, and that I think that goes a long way in helping.
It does. It does. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, thank
Okay.
you, Terray.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and again for you both being open to hearing about this.
Great talk,
Oh, for
Terray.
sure.
Good,
Thank
good.
you for
Thank
coming
you.
on
So
today.
much.
You're
Appreciate
And we'll
welcome.
see everybody next week. Thank you for joining in today.
it. It's great. Okay.